Yes, we are live now. Thank you, Councillor Monk.
Thank you. Right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Cabinet meeting. We will start with apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence?
No apologies this evening, Leader.
Thank you. We move on to item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No? Okay, we move then on to the minutes. To consider and approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of February 2021. Are there any objections to the minutes? No, then those minutes are approved. Thank you. We then move on to item 4, housing operations policy, which is Councillor Godfrey.
Thank you, Leader. Good evening again, everybody. Happy to be bringing this report to you. Another step in the right direction to build our housing service. We didn't have these policies, or East Kent didn't have these policies, and they're very essential to our looking after the housing system. Oh God, my eyes have gone funny. There's 6 policies forming the framework of the housing operations service. As I say, East Kent didn't have them, and the last tenancy policy we produced by the council in 2012, so definitely needed updating. They are very operational, high level, and show our intent, but behind the scenes they're supported by a large number of operational procedures sitting beneath them. There are 6 policies: the tenancy policy, the housing management policy, the community safety policy, the home ownership policy, the shared ownership policy, and the right to buy policy. All, I believe, fairly explanatory, but I'm sure some of you would have some questions. Consultations were taken out with the tenant and leaseholders and boards, staff of the housing system, and of our housing management team. And the officers, I think, have worked very hard in developing these various policies. I would like to move that we accept these, and I will throw it open to councillors for questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Godfrey. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby, just speak, Councillor Beale. Okay, members, over to you. I know Councillor Prater has some questions or comments.
Thank you. I'll stop putting my hand up and do this by ESP in future.
I'm good at that.
It's almost as if I'd emailed. There were a few comments, a couple of which I've seen answers for, but I think it's useful to do it for the tape. 3.11 says that the leaseholders board and others have been consulted on each policy. I was interested to know if there had been feedback on any of those policies from the leaseholder board or other consultees, and whether that feedback had all been incorporated or whether some of it hadn't. I noted on the cover sheets of the home ownership management policy, shared ownership policy, and the right to buy policy that there didn't seem to have been a consultation. It was written that no groups had been consulted in each of those. I think you can give me an answer as to whether that's true or not. The final point, or substantive point that I'd like to make, is the policy review section of each policy says that the policy will be reviewed every 3 years by the person who's in the job role of the author. If necessary, this policy will be reviewed sooner to incorporate legislative, regulatory, best practice developments or address operational issues. The one thing that's not cited in there as reasons to update a policy would be if council or cabinet decided that we should change something. And I'm assuming that it would be intended that if cabinet or council decided that we were going to change something and review those policies, then we could review those policies before the next review point. And I think just inserting a decision, something along the lines of, or council decision after legislative, would just allow those policies to be reviewed. So if cabinet said that we wanted to review the home ownership management policy. We weren't waiting for a break point at that stage or a legislative change in order to do so. So that was.
Thank you for that. I think that had you have brought that up beforehand, we probably could have incorporated that. I don't think it's. I don't think.
I actually did. Okay.
Yeah, but very timely, not up against the wire. What I believe is that we can, as a council, do a review any time we like. I think that's inherent within our powers. I don't think we have to put it in there, but I'm quite happy to take advice from our officers, Susan or Amandine.
Thank you, Leader. I can't see any concern whatsoever with members expressing that they would like changes to a policy made before the due date. We have had experience of doing that before. So you are right, Leader, that by not saying it doesn't mean that we can't do it, if you see what I mean. I hope that's helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby.
Yes, thank you. Just a small point, really. On 4.2, if we decided for any reason that somebody cannot maintain that tenancy or is not doesn't have the circumstances to qualify them for, is there any support that we would give them to move on? And I couldn't see anything anywhere about that. That was just my point.
Got an answer for that, please?
Can I come in there?
Yeah, of course you can.
I'm sure one of the officers will support me on this, but we do have, of course, our housing options team as part of the service, which will help people who are in difficulty to find alternative accommodation. So we do provide those services. Perhaps someone might like to expand on that. Perhaps Mr. Blaskovich will,
I can come in. Thank you, Councillor Godfrey, Leader. There's a whole host of services and support right across the housing service through the finance teams, housing options teams, so that help would be available. And I'll just come in on Councillor Prater's other points previously, that all policies were consulted on. There's one of them that wasn't mentioned, but they were all consulted on with the tenant and leaseholder board.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tim, you look querulous.
Just to say that, was there any feedback from the tenant leaseholder board that was then incorporated or not incorporated into the document?
They were happy with all of the policies and there were no changes made.
Okay, does any other member wish to speak? Okay, therefore it's been proposed by Councillor Godfrey, seconded by Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby. All those in favour. Gemma, will you take the roll call, please?
Councillor Collier.
For.
Councillor Godfrey.
For.
Councillor Field.
For.
Councillor Hollingsby.
For.
Councillor Monk.
For.
Councillor Peel.
For.
Councillor Prater.
For.
Councillor Wybrow.
For.
And Councillor Wimble.
For.
That's unanimous, Leader.
Thank you very much. Okay, we now move on to item 5, the Equality and Diversity Annual Report 2019-20. Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby.
Just bear with me while I move on. I've had to put both I'm having to use one screen, in other words. So I just want to move on to, still moving through the housing. I thought we were taking them singly. I didn't realise. Right, thank you, Leader. This annual report summarises the activities we have taken as a council in 2019-2020 to promote equality, diversity and inclusion. It also highlights the positive measures that have been taken to remove barriers, improve access to services and increase customer satisfaction. This report has come to Cabinet later than originally planned due to the COVID pandemic, but officers will return with the next edition of the annual report covering the financial year 2020 to 2021 to Cabinet in September. The report gives an insight into the health of our district and highlights a number of concerns that we need to address. Our new corporate plan, Creating Tomorrow Together, adopted last month at full council, sets out our commitment to positive community leadership. As part of this, we aim to build even stronger relationships with our partners and communities to help address many of the inequalities that exist within our district. The corporate plan also identifies the need to improve access to services in our most deprived neighbourhoods, which is more important than ever as we look towards the recovery from the COVID pandemic. And I'd just like to, reflecting on 2019 to 2020, just to reflect on a few of our achievements, is the Folkestone Haven setting up. This is all set out in the report, but the Folkestone Haven that was set up jointly, we supported this and it is proving to be very popular. Defence Employer Recognition Scheme, we achieved the Silver Award, and actually we've now submitted an expression of interest to go for the Gold Award. The annual grant funding, we renewed our funding for a number of community and voluntary organisations. Our Safety in Action Day, the Tall Ships Project, and I just also like to refer you to the Improving Customer Experience section on page, well, it could be 96 or 31, depending which copy you're looking at. In March last year, just before the end of the financial year, in the wake of the COVID pandemic, the council swiftly set up 3 community hubs in the district. The hubs are operated by three key partners: Three Hill Sports Park, Age UK, Hythe and Limage, and the Romney Marsh Day Centre. And they provide an excellent example of the vital support we have helped to coordinate to benefit vulnerable people who are self-isolating. I hope this gives you a picture of some of the activities we are doing to promote equality, diversity and inclusion. And I hope that you will be able to support the report's recommendations. And I would just like to thank the officers for the amount of work put into this report, and also to say that we've tried to get the most up-to-date information. And of course, with the census this year, hopefully we can get more up-to-date information. So I hope, I'd like to propose the recommendations and hope I have a seconder.
Is there a seconder for that? That's Councillor Godfrey. Thank you. Over to you, members. Councillor Whitebrow.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought it's a very interesting report, actually, and it's got some very interesting information in there and actually some quite worrying statistics. So I think that just shows how important our equality and diversity policy is. Just one thing I would like to add, the appendix talks about training for staff. I would like equality and diversity training for councillors as well, if that's possible, please.
I'm sure that will be possible.
We have done it in the past. I'm quite sure we can do it again. Okay, Councillor Godfrey. You are muted, Councillor Godfrey.
Councillor Wybrow's actually said it. There's some really interesting statistics in there, and I think there's a lot of hard work on that, and it's very informative. So thank you, everybody, for producing it.
I think it shows we're on the right general track, doesn't it? Okay. Any other member wish to speak? Then proposed by Councillor Mrs. Hollingsley, seconded by Councillor Godfrey. All in favour. Gemma, please take the roll.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Collier.
4.
Councillor Godfrey.
4.
Councillor Field.
4.
Councillor Mrs Hollingsby,
4,
Councillor Monk,
4,
Councillor Peel, Councillor Peel,
Sorry, 4.
Councillor Prater,
4.
Councillor Wybrow,
4.
Councillor Wimble.
4.
That's unanimous, Leader.
thank you very much. We now then move on to item 7, Opportunitas Limited update. Councillor Rolfe.
we've got the equality.
Sorry, Leader. Excuse me, Leader. I think we've
We've got
skipped
the
over
equality.
item 6. Leader. I think you skipped over item 6.
Oh, I have indeed. Okay. Well, I'll come back to item 6.
Thank you.
But we'll now ask Councillor Rolfe. Perhaps you carry on, Councillor Rolfe.
Sorry, I was having trouble on mute. Thank you, Leader. I'm presenting the report on behalf of Opportunitas, providing you with an update on our current financial status to the 31st of January, our projected financial outturn for 2020-21, and importantly, to highlight the key major financial benefit that the company has, in terms of the council's finances. The reason for this is that we are in line with the shareholder agreement, duty bound to provide you with a quarterly report, and we are obviously doing that. Basically, the overall synopsis is the company is on track with its approved business plan, and in summary, the slight reduction in rental income has been offset by a similar reduction in expenditure. So our projected outturn for 2021 of an operating loss of 117,000 is very much in line with what has been anticipated. However, importantly, going forward, the Royal Victoria Hospital development will hopefully be available for let in the summer of this year, and that will actually help hopefully start to impact significantly and positively on our overall profit and loss accounts. You can see in property rental, our overall rental income is to the 31st of January is 212,000. We've got 34 of our 38 units tenanted. 2 are about to be relet, and 2 are undergoing fairly major repairs. So that has obviously impacted on our income. We continue to monitor any arrears. Obviously, fairly restricted by the impact of COVID on the legal process, but we are adopting a fairly robust approach to addressing those, and indeed at least a couple of tenants have completely cleared their arrears, which is good news, and that is being monitored both on a monthly basis and also at every board meeting. Similarly, the safety compliance register that we adopted over a year ago is again monitored on a monthly basis. It's kept updated with all new legislation, so that is continually reviewed and also again goes to every board meeting. Grounds maintenance has become less has been basically taken out of the equation in light of a business decision that we took, so that we are going to be focusing much more strongly on the rental sector. Importantly, though, going forward, the Royal Victoria Hospital development will we've had a regular update, and we're hoping to have a site meeting when it's convenient to do so. That seems to be progressing very well, and will actually hopefully be a really good exemplar in terms of a high quality units available for private rent. So that's quite key. But I'd like to finally highlight the positive financial impact that the company has for the council's finances. And on page 136, you'll see a total of £302,000, which is clearly identified as loan interest repayments and other reimbursements. So there is a positive impact, and that will only get better. And we're coming up to the end of the financial year when all of the property portfolio will also be re-evaluated, which again is a firm asset which the council can seek surety and reassurance in. So happy to answer any questions, and if I can't answer them, then I know.
Thank you. First of all, I'm going to move the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby. Okay, over to you, members. Any questions? I think that taking a lead out of Councillor Prater's book, I will just elaborate a little to explain that it actually is not a problem that the company itself is operating at a loss. The long-term plan is it will come into profit, but at all times we own the properties, and it is the equity in the properties that continues to rise while we still get an income from doing the letting, which is the whole purpose of the exercise. Councillor Peel.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'm glad you made that point. I just wanted to kind of see clarity, because I've just been reading through and I just noticed something I missed previously. The important word Smith Woolley. My wife works for Smith Woolley, not in the managing agent side, but in the residential sales side. I just want to double check that I've got no interest in this particular item as a consequence.
Can I ask Amandeep to comment on that? She might not be there because there's a lot of trouble with the internet at the moment. I don't think you have. I don't think I
don't think I have, on the basis I didn't know about it. But
I don't think you have. There's no pecuniary interest, a special interest, an interest. You've noted it, so I think we're all right. Okay.
I'd agree with that. Thank you, Leader. Yes, I would agree that we'll note it as an OSI. And thank you for declaring that, Councillor Peel.
Okay. Is there any other member got anything to ask or add? In which case, proposed by me, seconded by Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby. All those in favour, Gemma, please.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Collier.
4.
Councillor Godfrey. Councillor Godfrey.
4.
Councillor Field.
4.
Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby.
4.
Councillor Monk.
4.
Councillor Peel.
4.
Councillor Prater.
4.
Councillor Wybrow. And Councillor Wimble.
4.
That's unanimous, Leader.
Good. We now then move on to Equality and Diversity Policy 21 to 25. And I think, again, that is Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby.
Yes, thank you, Leader.
Hello.
Carry on.
Yes, thank you, Leader. This report presents the draft Equality and Diversity Policy for 2021 to 2025. The existing policy covered the period 2016 to 2020, and therefore a refresh is required. The public sector equality duty requires us to demonstrate due regard to equalities through the production of an equality policy every 4 years, outlining how we will meet our statutory duties in regard to equality and diversity. The policy itself remains largely unchanged, as there have been no changes in legislation since 2010. An additional section has been added, section 9, titled Wider Role in the Community, to reflect the Council's influence in promoting equality and tackling discrimination within the community through its work with partners. The section is also intended to reflect the resolution to full council on the 21st of October 20 that the council demonstrates intolerance of racism and all forms of discrimination. The policy now clearly denounces all forms of discrimination and makes a commitment to eradicating hate crime through work with partners. This report's recommendation is to approve the equality and diversity policy, and I hope that you will be able to support this recommendation. And again, I'd just like to thank the officers for the work that they put into this report.
Okay.
And so I move the recommendations. And
There a
hope I have
second
a
for
second.
that, Councillor Peel? Okay, over to you, members. I would say that on the parity on pay, we're also doing very well. We've got a report coming through very shortly. There's very little difference. Now, I think we take this equality and diversity policy very seriously. And no, okay. Well, as Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby said, this is a continuation of the report, a refreshment. So as there are no other members, it's proposed by Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby, seconded by Councillor Peel. All those in favour? Roll call, please, Gemma.
Councillor Collier.
4.
Councillor Godfrey.
4.
Councillor Field.
4.
Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby.
4.
Councillor Monk.
4.
Councillor Peel.
4.
Councillor Prater.
4.
Councillor Wybrow.
4.
And Councillor Wimble.
4.
That's unanimous, Leader.
Very much. Okay, then we'll move on to item 8, HRA Revenue and Capital Q4 Budget Monitoring. Councillor Godfrey.
Thank you, Leader. This is our usual monthly monitoring report, keeping an eye on the budget as we always do. There's very little change. In fact, the main difference is again because the delays to our new build programme and repairs programme, capital programme, which is expected to progress more quickly during 21-22. So the movements between the two are pretty much the same as last month. I can say that we should be completing, I'm pleased to say, on 2 new builds on the 26th next week up here in Mill Farm at Hawkinge, and I've been invited to go and have a look, which should be quite interesting, and these are for shared ownership purchase. We're at present in good shape. I hope we continue to be in good shape. COVID hasn't hit rentals as hard as I expected, but we still don't know the full outcome, and therefore I'd like us to note and receive the report, please.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Collier. Okay, over to you, members. Any questions, queries? Okay. In which case I'll go to the vote. Proposed by Councillor Godfrey, seconded by Councillor Collier. All those in favour, roll call please, Gemma.
Councillor Collier.
4.
Councillor Godfrey.
4.
Councillor Field.
4.
Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby.
4.
Councillor Monk.
4.
Councillor Peel.
4.
Councillor Prater.
4.
Councillor Wybrow.
4.
And Councillor Wimble.
4.
That's unanimous, Leader.
Thank you. Okay, then we come on to item 9, General Fund Capital Programme Q4 Budget Monitoring. Again, a continual quarterly report that gives where we are today. There have been a few queries on it, and I think they've all been answered. So I recommend the recommendations to you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby. Right, okay. Over to you, members. Councillor Mrs. Wybrow.
Thank you. Just one question. I've been told that the 250,000 that's against Prince's Parade doesn't include the works that was done along the north side of the canal last week. So just for the public record, could we tell people how much was actually spent on that work, please?
Can somebody tell us how much we've actually spent on that?
I can come in there, leader.
Yep.
If you like, I believe it was in a region of almost £40,000 split between internal workforce and external contractors. I think it's about 38 altogether, which will be funded by the project. That's not included in the figures from the information that I've been given.
Okay, thank you. We'll come back on that, Councillor Wybrow.
No, I
Don't
just wanted
have
that
to.
on the public record. That's all. Thank you.
Excellent. Anybody else? Any queries? Okay, then it's proposed by me, seconded by Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby. All in favour? A roll call, please, Gemma.
Councillor Collier,
For.
Councillor Godfrey,
For.
Councillor Field,
For.
Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby,
For.
Councillor Monk,
For.
Councillor Peel,
For.
Councillor Prater,
For.
Councillor Wybrow,
For.
Councillor Wimble.
For.
That's unanimous, Leader.
Thank you very much. We now come on to the last item, which is item 10, the General Fund Revenue Q4 Budget Monitoring, which you have before you. It actually is rather good news. From a dire prognosis at the front end of the year, we appear to be coming out at the far end a lot better off than we thought we were going to be, which is very good news. Not the least of which, I know that if this projected outrun actually appears, or something very near it, we won't have to take any money out of the Climate Change Reserve, and which is, again, very, very good news. So there is the second recommendation is to utilise £300,000 to provide interim capacity for the delivery of corporate priorities. I have been queried why the remit is so wide. The remit is so wide because we don't know what we're going to be faced with as we come out of the lockdown and out of this pandemic. And so we want to be able to give our management team the maximum of flexibility. I'm sure you'll agree that they're a sound mob. They do a really grand job. So I'm very, very happy to move the recommendations. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby. Okay, over to you, members. Councillor Prater.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I was the one who questioned that recommendation too with you, not because I have any question about the people either bidding to that fund or indeed the amount within it. It's just that the phrase interim capacity for the delivery of corporate priorities means nothing. It means stuff. And then looking at the report, the paragraph of the report, which then justifies what that stuff might be, it also doesn't really explain what that is. Now,
well, because we don't know.
I think it was helpful that you've explained that some of it is development out, of dealing with issues arising from the pandemic and dealing with those priorities. But it is quite general, and generally, one doesn't like to create a budget headed stuff out of which things can be done, signed off by two people. It makes my teeth itch fractionally. I understand why it's there. I think it's a reasonable provision in terms of the amount from where we are at the moment. And clearly the revenue budget monitoring, as you made the point perfectly reasonably, is in a much better position than 6 months ago we could have done. I think it is a good indication that the decision taken not to panic on the budget 6 months ago was the right one. To be nervous but not scared was the right one, and that it's in a much better position than I think even the most optimistic of us thought that it could be. So I accept the conditions on it. I just do have some concerns about quite how vague that is, and would ask that the reporting of that spending is made as close to the time that it is decided as opposed to after the decisions have been made as possible.
Well, we'll see what we can do. Contingency is I think the word covers it all. You might call it stuff. I call it contingency. I think it's very proper that we should have such a sum for the management team to call upon. It enables the ability, the council to be swift of foot when it needs to be, which is the main objective of it. Okay, is there any other council? Yes, sorry, I had Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby.
Yes, thank you, Leader. It wasn't really until this morning that I had the opportunity to go through this, and I have to say it is a very comprehensive report. And particularly when you consider the number of different grants that have come in, gone out in different directions, I think the officers, and I think Charlotte perhaps could pass it on, I think they've done quite an amazing job. And I think it just goes to show that the financial aspect that we've always put on the finance for this district is paying off. As Councillor Prater said, perhaps 6 months ago, I think it was you actually, Leader, who said, "It's don't panic about it. Don't panic. Let's see what actually happens and what materialises." And I think to have 300,000 available to react rather than to be proactive and react to things, or be proactive perhaps rather than have to react to everything, can only be of benefit to the whole district and to this council. So I personally think that this is a very comprehensive report. Thank you to the officers, and 300,000 seems about right to me for a contingency fund.
Thank you. Okay, so any other member wishes to speak? No? Okay, well, it's been proposed by me, seconded by Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby. All in favour? Gemma, please.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Collier.
4.
Councillor Godfrey.
4.
Councillor Field.
4.
Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby.
4.
Councillor Monk.
4.
Councillor Peel.
4.
Councillor Prater.
4.
Councillor Wybrow.
4.
And Councillor Wimble.
4.
That's unanimous, Leader.
Thank you very much, and thank you all. That ends the cabinet for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.